The 2024 NFL schedule is finally out, and we're breaking down all the best matchups on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert from Locked On Titans, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert from Locked On Cardinals. The NFL schedule is now out. We're going to break down the best games of the season, the best primetime matchups, and talk about the primetime slate, which seems to be lacking, and look at some of the best games in week one, including how these rookie quarterbacks are going to fare. Before we get into it, do want to let you guys know that today's edition of Locked On NFL is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Alex, looking at the schedule as a whole, we're going to get into the best games that pop out to us, but there are some big picture takes about certain teams that did get primetime games, certain teams that didn't. What stood out to you in that big picture sense so far?
When are we going to all hold hands across America and question why the NFC East gets so much run outside of Philly? Like, listen, Dallas is a fun football team to watch in the regular season. I'm okay with them getting their 5 or 6 primetime games, whatever. There's always intrigue. It's usually against pretty good teams, unless it's the Giants or the Washington Commanders. They shouldn't be, the New York Giants should be getting the Jacksonville Jaguars treatment. They should not be getting any sort of like Dallas Cowboys light treatment. I don't understand it, Tyler Rowland. And this is from a former Daniel Jones truther. I don't get it. Number one. And then number two, and I know that I'm kind of stepping on your toes here because we talked about this before we recorded, the Saints. Like, there is a changing of the guard in the NFL. The Houston Texans are relevant again. The Dolphins, the Bills, the Lions, the Vikings still have some intrigue. Like, the Bears, the Packers, it's changing. Can we please let go of the Saints when they were relevant 5 years ago? Why are they getting so many games? I don't understand it. I don't understand.
Yeah, there are some boring matchups out there, quite honestly, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk just about the primetime schedule. But, it's kind of crazy how some of these teams, like the New York Jets, I think in the same realm, the New York Jets are getting 6 primetime games in the first 11 weeks. And I get that the NFL wants to front load the Jets' primetime schedule because they're worried about them getting hurt late into the year. But even if that were true, 6 primetime games for the Jets, it just seems like way too much for a team that we can't count on. So I agree with you there. There are some teams that didn't get a lot of primetime love, including both of our teams, Alex, who got a Monday night football game, the Tennessee Titans and the Arizona Cardinals, but it's part of a doubleheader. So it's kind of a backhand compliment. The Carolina Panthers didn't get a single primetime game. And, I understand that teams that you're not counting on or can't be certain if they're competitive, but to have that disparity between them and teams like the Saints, teams like the Jets, teams like the Giants getting that sort of recognition. I mean, it's just, I understand putting the best teams on primetime, but some of those things really stood out to me. As for some of the best games of the year, some of the games that pop out right away to you, obviously, we're going to be looking at games with the Kansas City Chiefs because they're the defending Super Bowl champions 2 times, and they're going to make some great football magic, as they always do. 2 games that stand out to me right away. Week 7, Kansas City Chiefs at San Francisco 49ers. You get a Super Bowl rematch here. I think that is going to be an excellent one. And at week 7, it's, not late in the year, but it's had enough time where the teams can kind of find themselves after the early stretch. And then the Ravens against Kansas City is in week 1. That matchup has been discussed on the channel this week here on Locked On NFL, so I'm sure you guys have heard about that. But out of those 2 games, Baltimore at Kansas City in week 1 or Kansas City at San Francisco in week 7, which one of those games do you like the best?
Baltimore. It's always more fun. San Francisco is talk about another team that has 7 primetime games, I think, around there, and rightfully so. They're popcorn watching. I get it. I don't care about week 7 San Francisco and the Chiefs. I don't care. It would be a Super Bowl matchup. That's it. Baltimore is the new Buffalo with Kansas City. Buffalo is now taking a back seat. They are in back with Cincinnati and Buffalo. And Baltimore is now in the front seat with Kansas City driving the AFC ship. And it's incredible to watch those three teams kind of fluctuate, kind of getting closer and then coming back. And then the Chiefs, Michael Phelpsing it and getting all the way up front. And then them never getting close. The Ravens, and here's the thing, the Patriots used to lose games like this. They lost a week 1 game to Kansas City with Alex Smith a handful of years ago. The Baltimore Ravens very well could win that week 1 game, but it ain't going to matter. If I'm the Ravens, I want to play them in week 14. I want to play them in week 16. I want to play them when it actually matters instead of a throwaway game when everybody's kind of trying to acclimate to their new pieces. But I think it's always Baltimore and Kansas City at this point.
No, I think that's fair. And I think that Lamar Jackson is just an exciting player to watch. So I would rather watch Lamar Jackson in Baltimore than San Francisco. Anyways, another game, speaking of the Buffalo Bills, the Stephon Diggs revenge game. Week 5, Buffalo Bills at Houston Texans. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. Alex, if you had to pick a team right now to have a better record between Buffalo and Houston, who would you take?
I don't want to. I'm still taking the best player, and the best player is Josh Allen. So I'm still taking Buffalo. And listen, Miami's Miami. They're going to turn into a pumpkin. The Jets are the Jets. They've never been anything but the Jets. And the Patriots are 2 wins for the Bills. I think the AFC South is going to be a lot more incestuous than people think. Jacksonville's supposed to be the leader. Now it's Houston. Anthony Richardson has looked good on tape so far during, the mini camps and things like that. He's going to be healthy. I think the AFC South is going to be a tougher division. And Tennessee's always a tough out with all those options now for Will Levis to huck the ball to. I think that it's going to be a lot more incestuous with the AFC South. So I'm going to take the best player, and I'll take Buffalo.
Okay, we're going to keep revenge on the mind. Alex, I am the living embodiment of the I thrive off negativity meme. That is me. You know how it goes. So out of these 2 revenge games, Pittsburgh Steelers at Denver Broncos, week 2, Russell Wilson's revenge, or Atlanta Falcons at Minnesota Vikings, week 14, Kirk Cousins' revenge. Which one of those games do you find most interesting?
Everybody's going to want to hug Kirk Cousins and put him on their laps. He didn't leave in a plume of dust. He left because he could get more money elsewhere, and it was done in Minnesota. I don't think Russell Wilson was very beloved in Denver, and that was Nathaniel Hackett's fault seemingly in year 1, and then Sean Payton was a total jerk in year 2, blaming Russell Wilson for everything. I think that one's going to be a lot more fun, and I hope Pittsburgh shoves it down their throat. Denver is one of the most unbecoming organizations now. It's the Waltons up top, and Sean Payton thinks he's better than everybody else, and they think that Bo Nix is going to be the guy with, you and I on our podcast. We're just come on, man. Where's the redeeming quality? Pittsburgh only has redeeming qualities usually.
All right, one more that I want to point out here.
You're pop quizzing me, bro. All right.
Yep, one more, and I'll take the lead on it. Baltimore Ravens at Los Angeles Chargers, week 12, the Harbaugh Bowl. I think that's going to be such an excellent game. Not only is it the Harbaugh Bowl, but Greg Roman's revenge. Yeah. Greg Roman, former offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, got jettisoned and now is with Jim Harbaugh with the Los Angeles Chargers. I think seeing that come down to week 12, both these teams are going to be who they are. I think the Chargers are going to be improved. Baltimore's obviously a good team. I think that's going to be an incredibly interesting matchup because I think the Chargers could be putting something together there. Both teams want to be super physical. That is going to be a backyard brawl. That is going to be an alley fight between the Ravens and the Chargers. So very interested in that game. So some great matchups between great teams, some revenge games, some intrigue. The NFL schedule is out, and it's a great time for football fans. We're going to keep breaking down the schedule release with the best primetime games of 2024. And I'm going to make an overall point that I don't think the primetime slate is all that great. And we'll talk about week 1 and the rookie debuts at the end of the show. Before we continue, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. The NFL schedule is now out, which makes it the best time possible to go buy tickets on Gametime. You get incredible features with Gametime. Number 1, all-in prices. You know what you're paying for your ticket when you click on your ticket. Not only that, but you get a view from your seat. They actually show you what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. You can't find that anywhere else. They have the game time guarantee as well. If you find tickets in the same section or row for the less price, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. I mean, so many features, killer last minute deals. It's not just football games either. Obviously, they have basketball, baseball, theater, comedy, music. I mean, everything. But the NFL schedule is out. So that makes it a great time to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. It's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Alex, let's continue today's breakdown of the 2024 NFL schedule. We talked about the best games, some big takeaways as well. Now it's time to focus on prime time. There's a lot of good primetime games here, but not as many as you would like to see, in my opinion. Before we get into that, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first to listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But Alex, we'll talk about the good primetime games out of the gate here. I was taking a look. We'll start with Thursday Night Football. Bengals-Ravens, Week 10. I mean, that is a dynamite game. Bengals and Ravens always seems to be a good game. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, two excellent top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL at this stage. I absolutely love that matchup. And then the other one that sticks out to me here is Packers-Lions, Week 14. Two NFC North aficionados going at it. We saw them go at it at the end of the season last year. Aaron Rodgers last year, he had to get into the playoffs by beating the Lions. Couldn't do it. What a shock there. So these teams just have a lot riding for them, with Jordan Love showing up last year and ascending. Jared Goff got his big money deal. Out of those two games, Bengals and Ravens and Lions and Packers, which game most interests you? And is there any other Thursday night football game that has your eye?
Anything Lions is going to supersede Bengals for me. I think they're a lot more fun to watch now.
I like Lions better than Tigers too.
Okay. I mean, oh my, and then with the Packers, like, you look at Jordan Love. I think he's going to be more fun to watch than Caleb Williams this year. This is the year. This is the year where he's going to jump up, and we'll see. They've got infants for wide receivers. These guys are going to be around for a long time. And the best part about the Packers is they can pay Jordan Love next year and not have to pay any of these wide receivers for another 2 or 3 years, or their tight end. So, and they got Josh Jacobs. They've got Matt LaFleur, who is sneakily, like, Kevin Stefanski gets all the credit, but all Matt LaFleur has done is win double-digit games every year. And I think that, like, with
he's an underrated coach.
Yeah, moving forward with this changing of the guard that we mentioned in the first segment, the Packers are one of those teams with the Lions, with the Texans, that are kind of moving ahead of the old dogs like the Saints and the Giants, and it's young quarterback play and wide open offenses. So I'm here for it. So I would say, well, long-windedly, Green Bay and Detroit there. But I mean,
fair
listen,
enough. They're newer kids on the block than the Ravens and the Bengals, who have been doing it for a minute. Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
Games that stand out to me. Cowboys at San Francisco, Week 8. I think that'll be an interesting game. Those are two of the most storied franchises in the NFL. I just feel like we're always going to get something good out of that matchup. Good, whether the game is good, bad, close, but there's good storylines coming out of that game every single time, no matter what. And then another Lions game, Lions-Texans, Week 10. And I got to say, I got to come out of the gate. I know that I brought in the old dogs, the traditional blue blood franchises, but I'm way more interested in Lions-Texans. I just think the Texans are ascending. I think both of those teams kind of mirror each other a little bit in ways. They're not exactly the same, but I think that, like, the Texans defense has a young edge rusher, doesn't have a lot of household names, but they do a pretty good job on offense. They have good quarterbacks who maybe not be the most mobile, exciting, run all over the place, off reaction playmakers, but they're just such good pure throwers. You know what I mean? They have good offensive line play, good hard-nosed leader coaches who can motivate their guys. I think Texans-Lions is going to be an excellent matchup. the San Francisco Cowboys game is going to be great, but I'm definitely going to go with Lions Texans. I think
I think there's something that I think is a lot more, and just before, because there's a couple games I want. I think that you're giving the Sunday Night Football slate not nearly as much credit as it deserves. But I'll get to that in a second. Like, you look at the Lions and the Texans, the quarterbacks are the beloved leaders immediately. There's no – all Jared Goff has done is shut up and play football. Oh, Carson Wentz is better. Oh, I mean, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford are pretty much the same person. They just got traded for each other. One was more established, and one was a little bit easier to be puppeted, like Matthew Stafford was, because he's more established. And Jared Goff went with no expectations. They were going to draft Tua at 3, and he was going to be off. And then look at what's happened when he's given the ecosystem to produce. And the same thing with CJ Stroud. They're the bona fide leaders, young. Well, CJ Stroud is. They're beloved. They're the leaders. They're team first. And you hope that you're more quarterbacks than that than Aaron Rodgers as we progress with these young guys getting thrown into the spotlight so fast. But I mean, dude, look at, I guess, so week 1, as we mentioned, Rams, Lions, boom. Bears, Texans, week 2. Are you kidding me? That's going to be so much fun with Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud. Chiefs, Falcons, week 3. Falcons are going to be.
I don't think that's that great. The Falcons aren't that exciting to me.
What the hell? How is that? Do they need more offensive weapons? What the? They're going to score 60 points a game this year. And then there's the huge drop off with the Cowboys, Steelers, yuck.
Bengals, Giants. Yuck. There's nothing there. Steelers, Jets, milquetoast. But
let's pivot here. Okay, for those that have watched Locked On NFL Thursday, are we going on our 4th season? Is that real?
I think so.
The one game, the division game, aside from the AFC North love fest that Tyler has with the Ravens and the Bengals.
I love that.
The one that he and I look forward to the most, because it's always on prime time once a year, is the Chiefs and the Chargers. And this year, with Jim Harbaugh, with an actual adult in the room, with somebody who's won before, you have Andy Reid. Like, the Chiefs are going through the gauntlet. I don't know how they're going to win over 12 games this year. Like, I think they
have it very tough.
It's so tough, but it never disappoints. It could be 9-6 or it could be 50-40. We have no idea what the game is going to be, but week 14, that's what I'm looking forward to. I think most, just because I think the Chargers are just fun and the Chiefs are always fun.
That's fair. All right. Fair enough. Monday Night Football.
Yep.
2 games that stand out. Baltimore versus Chargers, week 12. We already talked about that. That's the Harbaugh Bowl. It's great that that's on prime time. Who's got it better than us? We're going to hear it 100 times. I'm going to have to hit mute. And then after that, man, like, looking at the Monday Night Football slate here, I'm just not super impressed.
Not great,
I guess. I put down Lions and 49ers, a rematch of the NFC Championship game in week 17. That's a great matchup as well, but Jets, 49ers, okay. Falcons, Eagles, okay. Commanders, Bengals, Saints, Chiefs, I guess. I just don't see a lot of Broncos, Browns, Raiders, Falcons, Saints, Packers, like a bunch of these games that I just don't think are primetime worthy. Now, of course, these teams, not every team is going to be as good or as bad as we think they are, and that's going to change the intrigue and everything. I just think on paper, some of these primetime games are a little weak, but of course, we can always find the beauty in the primetime mess that is so. And I think you did a good job of that, breaking down some of those matchups that could be very intriguing.
I mean, I think they just bookended it. I'm fascinated to see Aaron Rodgers in San Francisco. That is the Achilles heel, and
no pun intended.
Wow. And for those that don't know, Leonard Floyd, who was responsible, indirectly, like didn't on purpose, was responsible for Aaron Rodgers after 4 plays last year, being out for the year. He now plays with San Francisco. So the back-to-back games that Aaron Rodgers is going to play is against the guy who knocked him out for the entirety of the year. It fascinates me, not because of the ego, not because of anything like that, but because Aaron Rodgers has never beat San Francisco in an important game.
Ever.
And you can blame special teams when they lost in Lambeau. You can blame whatever you want. Aaron Rodgers, for everything that he is that people think, he's won 1 Super Bowl over a decade ago and has never won an important game, especially against the San Francisco 49ers. So anytime I get to see Aaron Rodgers play against the San Francisco 49ers, and maybe they beat them, and maybe Garrett Wilson is going to be wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Maybe the defense is going to level up like it did last year, but they're going to have a quarterback hucking it instead of Zach Wilson and whoever the hell was throwing the ball for them last year. I'm fascinated in week 1, fascinated in week 17. It's kind of a crap box sandwich in between. I guess you're right. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans. We are Locked on NFL Thursday. Thanks for making Locked on NFL your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. There are some rookies. I don't know if you know this. They got drafted most way too high in the draft in 2024. They all play football in week 1 also. What are the most fun matchups? We'll discuss it next. Locked on NFL Thursday. But first, this episode of Locked on NFL Thursday is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can risk whatever you'd like betting against Nikola Jokic if you so desire. They've won 3 games in a row, going back to the Twin Cities to see if Anthony Edwards can knock that to a game 7. Do you want to bet the outright championship with Denver? Is it an odds-on favorite? No doubt about it going to happen. Whatever you decide, FanDuel's got you covered. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans. We are Locked on NFL Thursday. Thank you for making Locked on NFL your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. We decided to go live here because we think the visceral reaction to everything is more fun than the calculated one, because we know enough about football, or we pretend to. We trick you guys into thinking. And really the snap judgment is the most fun, because we know the storylines that carry over. We know the old dogs that are coming in for maybe one more hurrah. And we also know about the infusion of young talent that's going to be thrust into the quarterback action in week 1, the majority of which will be starting football games, irrespective if they're ready to do so or not. Mm-hmm. So, Tyler, I will throw to you, because the team that you cover is playing the #1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. Before we move on to other rookie games, it deserves a couple minutes with just the #1 overall pick with that, revamped offense against a Tennessee Titans team that's ready to pivot to some, more functionality over there.
I think it's going to be incredibly interesting, because what's the #1 thing you think about the Bears? Obviously you think of Caleb Williams, but if you had to say like what their best position group is at this point, most people are going to point to their wide receivers. Yeah. You had DJ Moore, you add Keenan Allen, you add Rome Odunze, you have Cole Kmet. Like, the offensive line is sturdier than people think for when you think about the Chicago Bears. So it's a pretty decent system. But you look over at the Titans, what's their best position group on the roster? And as somebody who covers the team on a day-to-day basis, I would tell you it's their cornerback group. Yeah. You bring in L'Jarius Sneed, you have Chidobe Awuzie, you have Roger McCreary, who's one of the most underrated slot players in the entire NFL. 4 players last year didn't allow a touchdown catch in the regular season. The Titans have 2 of them, Roger McCreary and L'Jarius Sneed. So the best position group for the Bears, and Caleb Williams' biggest advantage, lines up with the Titans' best strength position group-wise. And that could take away that advantage, especially with, not being on the same page in week 1. It may take time for those guys to really understand where they want them to be. So the Titans have the ability to disrupt Caleb Williams there if that matchup goes the right way. But overall, the Titans are a beatable team. And Caleb Williams could come in and like some rookie quarterbacks do, set the world on fire in their first appearance. I mean, Will Levis had 4 touchdown passes in his first appearance. Marcus Mariota did the same thing just from my neck of the woods in his first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Caleb Williams, while there is the potential that the Titans' strength lines up with the Bears' strength and that can cancel out, the Titans are clearly a beatable team with new weapons, new coaching. It could take them some time to get things together. So Caleb Williams could come out gangbusters here and have a great debut. So I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. Moving away from that, Jayden Daniels on the road at Tampa Bay, a Todd Bowles defense with a bad offensive line in Washington. That could be way tougher than what Caleb Williams has to deal with. Drake May, will he be playing? Will he not? A week 1 matchup in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They have a good D-line. They have a good team. Joe Burrow will be healthy. Like, I would probably go with Jacoby Brissett there. And then Bo Nix against Seattle. Seattle's defense was terrible last year, but Mike McDonald was brought in to fix it, and I think he will. So I guess out of all of those games, who do you think is most likely to win their rookie debut?
I'd probably say Bo Nix because he's 30. Like he's had the most reps in football, even though the last 2 years have been playing against cupcake Pac-12 defenses. I feel like having more reps in college, it's like the Houston Cougar quarterback effect, where all of them played 4 years, all of them came in, they were all backups, and then they just like Case Keenum is like the biggest name, but like they just come in, they just know how to play football. And I feel like Bo Nix, especially with having Troy Franklin, he's got his boy from Oregon there with him. Sean Payton's going to put together a very, waltzy gameplay. Yeah, it's going to be very, very simple. They're going to run the rock. It's going to be like, I don't think Cliff Kingsbury should ever have a job in the NFL again. So that goes against Washington. And Drake May, like Gerard Mayo came out after 2 days of minicamp. He's like, he's got a lot to work on, which isn't a great thing coming out when you drafted him number 3 overall and we're excited to do so. So, I think Bo Nix is going to have the early out-of-the-gate success, even though Jayden Daniels is 30 years old also. But I just trust Sean Payton much more than I trust Cliff Kingsbury and the dysfunctionality that is the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, 100%. That's regardless. Moving away from the rookie quarterbacks, just other week 1 games. If you want to pick one that stands out to you, for me, as a person in the AFC South who covers a team in the AFC South, I had to start with Houston and Indianapolis in week 1. Anthony Richardson is getting a lot of hype right now. He played, 5 games last year, had like 80-some dropbacks, ran the ball a ton. Running the ball is going to be part of his game, all right? Like, he's had 18 starts in the last 3 or 4 years. He only started 13 games in college, the five games last year, and a lot of people are hyping him up. Like you said earlier in the episode, he's healthy, he looks good in the mini camps, blah, blah, blah. Is Anthony Richardson going to be able to play the way that he has to play to get his true potential out of him? Is he going to be able to play that way and stay healthy? And then against the new-look Texans and that game that they had at the end of last year, just how far away are these teams now with what the Texans have done? And look, the Colts did things. They brought back all their own players. They didn't really do much outside of that, but Chris Ballard has got long hair and is the new Les Snead and all these things that people say. They're absolutely ridiculous. The most overrated GM in the league. But it's not time for that conversation. I'm just saying these teams were neck and neck, and it went down to the final play, a bad throw by Gardner Minshew behind his running back to lose that game when those teams were fighting for the same spot. How far away has the all season put these teams? And now that Anthony Richardson is back in the fold, how much of the gap does that close up? I'm excited to see those two teams play week 1. Is there another week 1 game that stands out to you right away?
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said is right. One thing with the Colts, why in the world did you let Gardner Minshew walk? I know that he's not the best.
You bring in Joe Flacco, the total opposite of Anthony Richardson as a player.
Yeah, he's the new age Andy Dalton, and you need Andy Daltons in this league. Like, I don't know why you let him walk. I just don't get it. Now, with that, one for me, I'm going to go back in my own backyard here. The Cardinals traveling to play Buffalo in week 1 is fascinating to me for a couple different reasons. One, Buffalo's wide receiver 1 is a rookie wide receiver out of Florida State.
Yep.
Dalton Kincaid is probably their number 1 passing option. Like, this defense, there's no, like, all of the big name players that you knew you grew and loved with Buffalo are gone. They're gone. So with the Cardinals, very young, Marvin Harrison Jr., they've got young corners, Kyler Murray. We have no idea for either of these teams what it's going to look like. And I actually talked about this on the show that I just did. 2021, I'm not doing this to rib or needle. The Cardinals traveled to Tennessee in week 1 of 2021. Okay. Tennessee was coming off, I think, a deep-ish playoff run. That was supposed to be a whomping of Tennessee over the Cardinals because, the Cardinals faltered in 2020, and then the Cardinals ended up beating them by 20. It was like
38-13.
Sorry?
I think it was 38-13.
Yeah. There was a no-doubter 5.5 sacks by Chandler Jones, including 2 strip sacks.
The end of Taylor Lewan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
literally
week 1, there's so many question marks. And for both of these teams, the Cardinals and Bills, while on different levels, massive question marks about what the future is going to look like. And the clash between the two of them at Orchard Park is going to be absolutely fascinating to me.
Man, can we sim to the regular season?
Right now.
I'm ready for some football. God, man, got to make it through the summer. But you're going to be able to make it through the summer with Locked On NFL, because we're still going to be pumping out Monday through Friday NFL content right here for free. Again, make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. But the schedule is out. Very, very exciting times. Can't wait to see some football, and it's going to be here before we know it. But that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. As I tell you guys, well, for me, Tyler Rowland. I always forget to say our names at the end, Alex. You know what I mean? Give us some credit here. For me, I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert from Locked On Titans, with my co-host, Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals. As I tell you guys every single week, start your weekend early and stay safe out there.